Oregon had its spring game on Saturday, and let's just keep it a buck. They look damn good. They look like a team that's not only ready to compete alongside USC, UCLA, and Washington for a Pac-12 title. Nay, they're going to play those three teams, plus Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and a bunch of other rosters that are more built in the Midwest to take on the Big Ten. But that's kind of the crazy thing about an Oregon roster. They feel like a team that can compete from the jump. And so what were the biggest takeaways from Eugene on Saturday? Let's go ahead and discuss. But if you're new here, welcome on into the channel, people. Make sure you like the video, hit the comment section. What's your overall thoughts for Oregon going into 2024? And hit subscribe because we're trying to build a college football community here on this app. Follow me on social media, wherever you got it, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Mr. Cole Thompson, and slide into the DMs or email me at colethompsonwriting@gmail.com if you want one of your questions answered live on air. There is nothing more I love doing than interacting with college football fans. And while you're at it, tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, college football aficionados, Big Ten faithful, and Oregon Ducks everywhere about this channel because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking about our favorite sport. Top takeaways from the Oregon spring game. Well, let's just get this out of the way. Whenever you translate to a new conference, there's going to be some speculation and some question marks. What does this roster look like? Where are some areas that you know are going to be weaknesses of the past that now need to become strengths? And more importantly, you're just trying to find a few things to hold out hope for until real fall camp gets underway and we're inching closer and closer to the start of the regular season. It's Tez Johnson taking over as the #1 wide receiver and getting balls delivered on a beautiful spiral from Dillon Gabriel. It piques my interest. I'm going to hold on hope to that for a while. In fact, I'm going to have some dreams about that in the Big Ten. There is certainly not going to be a drop-off from what you lost last season in Bo Nix and Troy Franklin to what's coming in with Tez Johnson moving up the pecking order to now wide receiver #1 and Dillon Gabriel, who basically encapsulates everything Bo does just with the southpaw. That's the only difference between these two. Both are extremely mobile. Both are extremely hyperactive. Both are very athletic for their size and their abilities. And they're both accurate. And they both go and read through the progressions extremely well. I think one of the biggest takeaways that you can have is that even though there are still some limitations to his game, and there are still some things that you want to see a little bit better, it's hard not to be impressed with what you saw from Gabriel. Completed over 66% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, 163 yards. He seems to be the part. And certainly when you're making that transition from one conference to another, you want to have as much veteranship as possible. And when you go to the Big Ten, the conference that's probably ranked by most people second in all of college football, having that veteran, that voice of reason to truly set the tone and give your backups time to adjust to this new brand of football, major accolade in your back pocket. And I think that's why you went out, you got a guy like Dillon Gabriel to lead the charge. But also, let's go ahead and talk about the other players that did have a good day. I thought Dante Moore looked really good. For a kid that is still learning how to play quarterback in college football and revamps an entire new offense underneath Will Stein compared to what he was running with Chip Kelly at UCLA, I think that you saw the version of what this team can be. Not what it is right now, not what it will be with Dante Moore, but what it can be with Dante Moore. Overall, 11 of 16 passing, 87 yards. He also had a big run of over 75 yards for a score. You see the elusiveness. You see the open field ability to create plays with his legs. That's something that I think is going to be really prominent for this team. I think also what's really prominent is you have a stable wide receiver #2 in Evan Stewart. Stewart comes in. You knew that he was definitely a hit and miss at times at Texas A&M, but the one thing that I always try to do is play this game called wait and see. And what that is somebody's going to come out wrong. Somebody's going to come out looking foolish. Is it going to be Evan Stewart, who just wasn't getting along with those in College Station, or was there so many problems in the dark corridors of Texas A&M that Stewart never was able to flourish the way that we all envisioned him to? Well, the version I saw on Saturday was one who can be an absolute easy complementary receiver, take over games with his pure adrenaline speed, show the ability to make contested catches look easy, and you're pairing that with the veteran Tez Johnson. You're pairing that with a kid who I think personally is going to not only pan out and turn into a very solidified all Big Ten type of wide receiver, but a guy that now is able to take that next step. The guy is now able to understand what is expected for Dan Lanning. I thought the offensive line on the right side looked really good. I thought the rushing attack looked really good. You lose Bucky Irving. That's a big time loss I don't think enough people are paying attention to. You have 3 running backs that I think all can add some value, whether it be Jay Harris, the Northwest Missouri State transfer. He had 11 rushes, 52 yards, 34 receiving passes, did a good job getting that 24-yard touchdown in the game's final minutes. I thought Jordan James had a pretty decent day. 51 yards on 7 carries, 73 yards out of the backfield as a receiving threat. Jaden Lidmer, 30 rushing yards, 20 receiving yards. They had some abilities, and that's even without Noah Whittington on the roster. So this could be a very dynamic passing attack that does still trust its run game, and it allows you to be multi-purposeful, which to me is a major win whenever it comes to setting a tone in a brand new conference. They can do a little bit of everything. You're third and short. You don't want to run the football. Well, you can option it, pitch to the outside to a guy like DJ James, and guess what? Reset the clock, get a ball deep downfield to Evan Stewart. 8-7, that's for 6 points. You're just subtracting each one and subtracting a loss off your record. That's the way I view it. Defensively, this is where I'm really excited to see what Dan Lanning's going to do in the Big Ten. I've talked about Oregon multiple times with what they are as a program, and I'll get to that in a moment. But when you think about what Oregon's defense looked like against itself, number one, there's nothing to really worry about when it comes to the offensive line. You're always going to see a little bit of regression when you have to replace players on that side of the football, and usually means something positive when your defense has taken that necessary step forward rather than the other way around, where your offense is completely capitalizing on every single defensive play. But also, you're just watching the consistency. 70% of the returning production from last year is back in Eugene as this team makes the jump over to the Big Ten. So you've already established a culture. You have good young players that are on the come up. More importantly, you got some veterans that I think are going to take that next step forward, whether that be Ben Roberts, whether that be Timea Tuau, whether that be Keon Ware Hudson, whether it be Michael Gardner. One of them's going to step up. But you also went out and you added improving commodities in the secondary. That way you just fortified your defense with the guys like Jabbar Muhammad from Washington. Last season, he found a way to beat you. And so if you can't beat him, force him to join you. And that's exactly what you did with Muhammad, who's now your legit number 1 cornerback. And you watched him make several highlight plays. And the good news is that he doesn't have to do this every single week, but he could if you want to. Now, let's get back to the whole point about what this comes down to with Oregon and its spring game in general. Oregon was a Frankenstein monster last year. I think the blessing about getting a coach like Dan Lanning has nothing to do with the schematics, has nothing to do with the recruiting, has nothing to do with the personality, the youthfulness that he can relate to players. It's all about the fact that he takes a little bit of everything from where he's learned and he's engulfed it into his own mesh. You have defensive linemen that are built to withstand the Big Ten. You have offensive playmakers that could crush it in the Big 12. They could crush it in the Big 12. They could crush it in the Big 10. They could do it really anywhere. You had a running back last year in Bucky Irving that was a bruiser and could easily handle the hits that are delivered in the Big Ten or the SEC. You have a quarterback that's been everywhere and is going for AARP status at this point, and you had that last year to kind of set the tone and get you to the over the top. Your 2 losses came to the same team, and it was because of you just didn't have enough aggression. You were too aggressive at times, and so because of it, you were caught in a rock and a hard place with your legs, with your tail wagged between your legs. And there you go. That's really what this is. Oregon's a Frankenstein monster. They can handle themselves in the Big Ten. And as weird as that is to say, you look at where these other teams are and how they're translating to their new conferences, whether it be USC, whether it be Oklahoma, whether it be Texas. I still have questions. I have a lot of questions for each one of those rosters going into next season. You know what I don't have a lot of questions with? Oregon's overall persona. Oregon's overall demeanor, Oregon's ways of doing things that can be successful and really turn into something promising. So when I look at the likes of what you have right now going on in Eugene, this is a team that can easily make their presence known at the big boy table in the Big Ten by midseason. You got a game against Ohio State on October 12th. Just say that real fast. A conference game against Ohio State on October 12th. That just feels weird. Like it rolls off your tongue. You know, like when you taste some bad food and it lingers. Like that's how it feels. Eventually you get around to it. You're going to have to because it's not going away anytime soon. But if you get that win over the team that many people believe is not only the favorites in the conference, but maybe the favorites nationally, it's really hard for you to not take yourself seriously. It's really hard for you not to put the rest of the world on notice. Yeah, we're here and we belong. And when I look at what Oregon can be, what Oregon has shown over the last 2 years, now building up to year 3, a very prominent year with the new college football playoff synopsis, with countless veteran talent, with a good recruiting baseline over the last 2 seasons. This is where, when you look at the Ducks, you would be quackers to not consider them a college football contender, and you would be absolutely befuddled to find anybody that does not believe that they can win a national championship. Make sure you hit the like button, comment down below. What's your overall thoughts on Oregon's spring game? What do you think of them going into 2024? Hit the subscribe button because we're always trying to grow here on YouTube. Make sure you're following me on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Mr. Cole Thompson. Link right down there below. Slide to the DMs if you have a question that you want answered and turn into a one-off video. And make sure that you tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, Duck faithful everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race to become not just the #1 YouTube show talking about our favorite sport, but the #1 college football community. To the Oregon Duck faithful, to all my college football aficionados out there, I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks. Later.